Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Stephen Damiana of the Curaçao Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We would like to welcome you to this webinar with the subject USA and You. We have an interesting panel for you today with different aspects of doing business with the USA and who is able to facilitate where to make it a reality for your business. This session will be recorded in order to evaluate and share the information online. House rules. We need some house rules, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure your mic is muted. Only our panel speakers will be able to use their mics. If you have a question, please wait until the end of the presentation to write it down in the Q&A box. This will ensure that you have questions that have not already been answered during the presentations. At the end of the session, we will have a couple of minutes of Q&A in which your questions will be answered accordingly. Contact informations and presentations will be sent after the session, so don't worry, be writing your notes stressingly. We will be able to send it to you afterwards. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pass the floor on to our Prime Minister, Mr. Eugène Regenaat, for a word of welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. Everybody, all participants, special welcome to Ambassador Haspels, distinguished speakers. Good morning, bon dia, as we say here in Curaçao. I want to thank you wholeheartedly for joining this session this morning. I am very impressed, if I may say, also enthusiastic by the diverse audience we have virtually in front of us today. Not only do we have participants from all the region joining us this morning, but also people from the private sector, different local businesses, consultancy bureaus, travel agencies, government institutions, ministries, and also state-owned companies from Curaçao. So a lot of potential for interchange, but also to make these important strategic connections between the US and Curaçao and the region. We are in unprecedented times, of course, as we all know. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on not only on local businesses and local economy, but also the global economy in many countries across. Small island development states have been devastated. Many of the islands that were relying on one or two main economic sectors, for example, tourism, but also connectivity, logistics, harbors, and airport have seen activity completely suspended. And also important from a macroeconomic point of view, not only economic growth turned into economic downturn, but also it impacted our foreign currency generating capacity and our reserves. So it is, to say the least, challenging times, but we as SIDS and island people are, of course, very resilient, and we're proud of it. As the famous American inventor and businessman Thomas Edison once said, our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. So we will continue to look for ways to get back up, and therefore the opportunities provided by this webinar couldn't have come at a better time. As many of you know, Curaçao has a long-standing and close friendship and relationship with the US that extends in many areas. The United States has also been always our biggest trading partner, and this is why it's not only important, but logical in these trying COVID-19 times that we reinitiate and solidify our mutual trade relationship. And also seek new opportunities, of course, because as we all know, some of it have called it post-COVID-19 era or the new normal. In any case, what has worked before this pandemic will probably not work the same in the post-COVID-19 era. It also means that we cannot meet physically. So for the time being, we have to make use of digital platforms to do our trade promotions. And we also need to seek new ways to do business in this new era. Digital economy that we have been discussing for a long time is not only an ambition or no longer an alternative or a possible future. It is necessary and it is now. And I'm glad to say that Curaçao, of course, and some of the partners or participants that are present can talk about it more in detail. But Curaçao offers a great infrastructure for digital commerce and connectivity, including a tier 4 data center. And this is one of the opportunities that we seek to expand and facilitate all kinds of new developments, not only commercial, but even in areas such as education. In essence, as SIDS and in Curaçao, we also have to seek ways to reinvigorate and bring a new dynamic to our economies and bring new diversity so that we are better capable in the future to withstand external shocks such as these. And in that context, I think that this encounter this morning is also very, very important. So I encourage you to contribute. I encourage you to have a good discussion and also enjoy this informative and interesting webinar. Engage with the speakers and use these platforms to ask many, many questions. And once again, to make the strategic connections that will enable all of your businesses to grow. Last but not least, this webinar has, of course, been made possible by a lot of people. And I'm very thankful to all of you. And also different partners that I want to personally thank in advance for a job well done. Thank you, of course, to the US Consulate General here in Curaçao, the Kingdom of the Netherlands Embassy in Washington, D.C., also a very important Consulate General in Miami, and the Curaçao Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and of course, our very own Directorate of Foreign Relations and their staff. I now leave you in the good and capable hands and pass the floor back to our moderator, Stephen Damiana, who's a very entrepreneurial fellow himself. I look forward to the results of this encounter and look forward, of course, to the next one. Let's make it a good one.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We now continue with our first speaker for today. This person joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1987 and has served as an ambassador in Hanoi, Vietnam, Director of the Sub-Sahara Directorate, Ambassador in Pretoria, South Africa, Director General Political Affairs, and is currently serving as our Kingdom's Ambassador based in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, with you, Honorable Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to the United States, based in Washington, Mr. André Haspels.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for this introduction. Prime Minister Ruggenaat, esteemed colleagues from the US Departments of State and Commerce, distinguished participants from the private sector in Curaçao, bon dia. Thank you for the opportunity to welcome you this morning. It's an honor to introduce you to the diplomatic network of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the United States and share some views on what we can do for you to do business from Curaçao. It has only been 4 months since I visited Curaçao and met many wonderful people. In all my meetings, including with Prime Minister Ruggenaat, I was inspired by the motivation to explore new opportunities for cooperation with the United States. But since then, as you all know, and the Prime Minister referred to it, a lot has changed in a short time. The COVID crisis rapidly accelerated shortly after my visit, and it has affected us all. But few places have been impacted as much as the countries in the Caribbean, where tourism is a crucial industry. And Curaçao, which at the outset of the corona crisis was already grappling with the effects of the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela and the downturn in the energy sector, has been hit particularly hard. I realize this has also greatly been affected by the private sector and possibly by your ambitions to do business in the United States. And some of you may have had to put your plans on hold. But others might be looking for new markets and business opportunities, perhaps inspired by the Caribbean road to the GES in March 2019. And Prime Minister Ruggenaat there hosted that event, which included interesting discussions between entrepreneurs and policymakers from the US and from the Kingdom on entrepreneurship, on innovation. The current situation, as I mentioned before, with travel restrictions and with uncertainty about the economic impact of the pandemic all over the world, and also in our part of the world, poses challenges for companies from the Kingdom of the Netherlands, including those from Curaçao. Yet I'm convinced that the economic ties between our nations are durable and strong enough to withstand these difficult times. During my visit in March, I was encouraged by the scope of the partnership between the United States and Curaçao. Close cooperation exists on economic issues, on defense, on security, on natural disaster responsiveness, on tourism, and of course on sports. Americans often mention the great number of Major League Baseball players who come from Curaçao, which makes also me very proud. So I look forward to supporting this cooperation in many areas. And the missions network of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the United States, our embassies and the 5 consulates, including the one in Miami, as the Prime Minister referred to, is here to help citizens and businesses from Curaçao during the current crisis and once it is behind us. Not only do we provide consular services, such as issuing passports and emergency travel documents if necessary, but we can also help companies from the Kingdom access the American market. And my colleagues at the Consulate General in Miami will say later on a little bit more about that. I sincerely hope that this webinar will be the starting point of a successful cooperation for many of you and a continuation of the partnership between Curaçao and the United States. And my colleagues and myself are happy to work with you on that. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very good and fruitful seminar.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Haspels. Ladies and gentlemen, for now, we'll continue with our next speaker. Luc Nijman took up his position as Deputy Consul General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Miami in August 2019. Prior to this, he covered political affairs and headed the press and public diplomacy section at the Dutch Embassy in Belgrade. He also served as the permanent representation of the Netherlands to the European Union, covering trade and development. His postings at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs in The Hague involved work on economic diplomacy and trade, including with the United States. In addition to this work for the ministry, Luc completed assignments in Washington, D.C., at the World Bank and the European Union delegation to the United States. Luc holds his master's degree in international public policy from University College London and in economics from the University of Amsterdam. Ladies and gentlemen, with you, Mr. Luc Nijman.
Thank you, Stephen, for that kind introduction, and a warm welcome to all the participants today, especially those from the private sector in Curaçao. I'll pick up on what the ambassador has said about what we can do as a diplomatic network here in the United States as representations of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. I'm based here in Miami, which geographically is the closest mission to Curaçao, but I'll be speaking on behalf of the network in general. Could I see the second slide, please? Thank you. Just a brief overview of what I'll be talking about today. I'll start off presenting the network, our missions here in the US, and then put that into the broader context of the economic and political relationship between the Netherlands and Curaçao in the United States, then focus a little bit more on the Southeast in particular, which is an important entry point for companies from the Caribbean into the United States, and then offer some concrete services and tools that we can offer for businesses from Curaçao. If you could skip to the next slide, please. And the next. Yeah, thank you. So this is our network. We have the embassy in Washington, which conducts the relations at the federal level, does our political affairs, and then we have 5 consulates in Miami, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. And colored in the map, you see the areas that they cover. From Miami, we cover the area in white in the southeast. And in addition to the consulates, we have 2 business support offices, or NBSOs, in Houston and one in Los Angeles. Below the map, you see the 3 core functions of the consulates, which is economic diplomacy, so trade promotion, helping companies, including those from Curaçao, access the market in the United States, but also consular diplomacy, such as renewing your passport, or emergency documents, or helping people, citizens in need. And the third area, public diplomacy, is how we communicate about our services, but also how we communicate about what our economies are good at, what are the economic strengths of Curaçao, and how do we convey those to the general public here in the United States. If you could skip to the next slide, please. Thank you. We are so well represented because our relationship is strong. Just to put some numbers on it, the United States is the #1 investor in the Netherlands, investing over 900 billion every year, which provides 250,000 jobs. And vice versa, the Netherlands is a top five investor here in the United States with $365 billion in investments, and that drives 825,000 jobs, which we aim to bring up to 1 million. Strong export numbers. Also, the United States exports over $66 billion in goods to the Netherlands. If you could go to the next slide, please. To zoom in a little bit on Curaçao, where the colleagues of the Commerce Department and the State Department will say a little bit more about the economic ties. But for us, it's really part of a broader partnership, as both the Prime Minister and the Ambassador also alluded to. A partnership that involves also cooperation on defense and security matters, on natural disaster management, tourism. Obviously, large numbers of Americans coming to the island of Curaçao pre-COVID, and we hope that will pick up in the near future. And of course, sports. The ambassador mentioned it, but it's more than professional sports. Sports also drives business, and it drives entrepreneurship. So it's a broad partnership that we aim to deepen. Could you go to the next slide? One important thing to realize before coming to the U.S. to do business is that there is no one USA. It consists of 50 states that are vastly different in their business cultures, in their tax and legal systems, but also in their economies. Different states have specialized in different sectors. So it really all depends on your products, on what you have specialized in as a company, your expertise, and where your potential customers might be. And even within sectors, there are differences. To give you life sciences, and as an example, Texas is very strong on digital health and e-health. Life sciences is also a very big sector in Florida, but the focus here is more on healthy aging and on healthcare services. And within each of these sectors that are important in the Southeast, and I'll say a little bit more about that later on, big differences exist within the sectors, and it's not a static picture. Also, things change over time. To give you the energy sector as an example, very important for Texas. Traditionally, oil and gas are large sectors in Texas. The shale gas revolution really made that even more prominent, and now the industry is going through a difficult time. But at the same time, Texas is the largest producer of sustainable energy in the country. So you see that the specific focus shifts over time. So it really depends on the niche of your company. If that niche or geographic focus is not very specific yet, then joining an economic mission or coming over for a trade show could be a good way to meet potential clients and to narrow that down a little bit. I'll get back to that in a minute. Could I see the next slide, please? Thank you. Just to highlight the Southeast a little bit, because it's such a stepping stone for companies from the Caribbean, not only to the United States, but also to the wider region. Miami really plays a hub function. And Florida is also an economic powerhouse in and of itself, with its economy recently hitting the $1 trillion mark. It's the 4th biggest economy in the country. If it were its own nation, it would rank 17th in the world, with a population of 22 million. Yeah, with Miami as its center, as a hub. Could you go to the next one? And the same goes for Texas, 2nd biggest economy in the country, with an important relationship with the Netherlands also. 7 billion of exports from Texas to the Netherlands, and our investments amount to 1.8 billion. Next one, please. Just to briefly mention a couple of sectors that are important in the Southeast. Agriculture is important throughout the United States. Cybersecurity, a cluster around San Antonio, but also Atlanta. Energy, I mentioned. Fintech is important for Atlanta, but also Miami, which sometimes called the Wall Street of the South. Sports, an important sector with a focus on esports in Atlanta. And maritime and tourism provides an important connection between Miami and Curaçao. The next slide, please. So this is really, what can we do for you? What services do we provide? What is the toolbox of economic diplomacy? One important element is to provide you with contacts with government officials, but also other companies, by organizing network events, by organizing trade missions, matchmaking with potential contacts and clients. We can also provide logistical support. If you set up a meeting here, we can help find you a venue. We can provide an introduction during the meeting if you think that helps you open doors, or that helps your case. We can help you join a trade show here or a seminar, and those events are also occasions to organize networking events on the margins of it. We also provide information about the markets here, and even if we cannot provide that information ourselves, chances are that we know someone who can. So we can also refer you to other sources in the Netherlands or locally, economic development agencies. Here in Miami, the Beacon Council, but every city and every state has its own comparable institution. The next one, please. To very briefly mention RVO, which is the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, because these instruments are also open to companies from Curaçao, and which specific instrument would be useful for you really depends on the stage of your planning. If you're really exploring the market, then they can provide country information or sector studies. Once things get a bit more advanced, then you could maybe join a trade mission, or PIB is a program for groups of companies, the public-private partnership. and RVO can also conduct feasibility studies. It's good to know that the RVO instruments in Curaçao are managed by Mayo, so they will be your first contact point for these. The final slide, please. To wrap it up, and I'll be happy to take any questions during the Q&A, but also in the months ahead. We really see this event today as a starting point of a partnership of helping companies from Curaçao come to the United States. And this is our team with the Consul General Ruud Emmering pictured up top. You know the gentleman on the left, and the three other colleagues are in our economic team, each focusing on different sectors that are important in the Southeast. But of course, we can also refer you to colleagues in the rest of the United States or in the Netherlands. So with that, I give the floor back to you, Stephen, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luc. All right, in this next speaker block, I will be introducing two speakers, Mr. Seth Wykes and Ms. Maria Aput. Mr. Seth Wykes is the Southern Caribbean Desk Officer in the State Department's Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs, where he also covers Caribbean energy issues. Over a decade-long career, he has served in Jordan, Egypt, and the State Department's Operations Center. Ms. Maria Aput, Energy Officer, works on energy and infrastructure issues in Latin America and the Caribbean at the State Department Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs. She started her career at the State Department on the Colombia desk and previously worked at the US House of Representatives for more than 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, with you right now, I will continue with Mr. Seth Wykes.
Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the very good program today. As Stephen had said, I am representing the Office of Caribbean Affairs within the U.S. Department of State. And the purpose of my very brief presentation is to simply kind of go back a few paces and go a little bit higher up to talk a little bit about the U.S. Caribbean relationship on a regional level. There are certain aspects focused specifically on Curaçao, but to focus more for the attendees on how the United States views the Caribbean and the importance of our relationship with all Caribbean nations. So if you're in Curaçao, you definitely know about our strong relationship from your interactions with our Consul General, and the great team that's on the ground, everything from education programs to economic advocacy. But I'm sitting here in Washington, and we have also a broader view of the importance of U.S. engagement in the Caribbean. I don't need to mention that we have long-standing ties with the nations of the Caribbean, very large diaspora populations that are living in the United States, often calling the Caribbean our third border. So it's a very important region for us. Thinking about how the United States views the Caribbean, I can point you to legislation mandated by our Congress in 2016, the Caribbean Strategic Engagement Act, which was a mandate to the State Department to engage more closely with the Caribbean. And a result of that was our US Caribbean 2020 strategy. And in the chat box, I'm going to put a link which explains way more than I have time for. But in brief, there are 6 pillars that are included in that strategy: security, health, prosperity, education, diplomacy, and energy. And so this ranges from our assistance on COVID-related matters, our economic advocacy for US companies, our focus on improving financing for renewable energy, high-level meetings with senior department and Caribbean nation representatives, our Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, which $30 million a year program to ensure that our communities in the Caribbean are safe and healthy and have the resources they need to protect themselves. And I'm going to put that in the chat box right now for you to look at. The one thing I'll mention is that when this was discussed at a meeting between our Undersecretary for Political Affairs, our number 3 official, with Caribbean senior representatives at the UN General Assembly 2 years ago, it was overwhelmingly agreed by Caribbean nations that resilience was sorely lacking from our strategy, that in terms of natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, large storms that knock out power systems, this was something that was lacking. And what we did was, after those discussions, we spent a number of months strategizing how best to also help our Caribbean partners on this. And what we developed was the US Caribbean Resilience Partnership. And I'm also going to send a link to that within the chat box so everyone can take a look. That so you can see that there's a multi-million-dollar whole of government program that you will see covers disaster resilience, training for first responders. You even have NASA involved researching to be able to determine future trends and figure out ways in which not to just simply rebuild after each natural disaster comes through, but how to prepare for the next one so that it isn't as destructive. So I leave you with those 2 links. I will say also that under the Caribbean Strategic Engagement Act, that first link that I sent, there is a report that was also mandated by Congress that we submitted that lists all of our activities under those 6 pillars. So you can get a full breadth of all of the different programs that the United States has sponsored in order to improve our relationship, strengthen our relationship with the Caribbean, ensure that everyone knows how important it is to US foreign policy. I will say one thing on the diplomacy pillar. We have regular interactions with our with senior Caribbean nations, Aruba, Curaçao included, at the State Department. And I see that from the attendee list, there are a number who are on this call today. And so we thank you for your continued partnership. And I'm sure they can attest to how closely we are coordinated and updating them on issues of mutual interest and concern. So I think I'll stop there. Just want to give you that broader overview of the importance of the Caribbean within US foreign policy planning. And thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Wykes. Right now, I'd like to continue with Ms. Maria Aput.
Hi, everyone. I'm trying to start my video, but it's not working. Okay, there we go. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here today and join you to talk about the Growth in the Americas initiative, or América Crece, like we call it in our Spanish-speaking countries. The need to spur post-COVID economic investment makes the impulse behind this initiative all the more relevant. Growth in the Americas is a US government initiative that seeks to catalyze private sector investment in energy and other infrastructure in Latin America and the Caribbean. The initiative started in 2018 as energy infrastructure focused, but we expanded its scope in 2019 to include a whole of government approach and encompass broader infrastructure needs. These needs include telecommunications, energy, ports, roads, and airports, but it really depends on which country you're looking at. The White House launched the expanded Growth in the Americas initiative in December 2019 in Washington, followed by a larger public event at the US Chamber of Commerce, where we had several ministers and high-level officials from the region, as well as private sector representatives, which really shows the importance that we place in engaging the private sector under this initiative. And I'm so glad to see so many private sector and government representatives here today. The initiative right now leverages ongoing programs, resources, and expertise of core US agencies. These agencies include the Departments of State, Treasury, Commerce, Energy, Transportation, the US Agency for International Development. We also have the US Trade and Development Agency that's very involved, as well as our Export-Import Bank and the Development Finance Corporation. So that gives you the flavor that it really is a coordinated whole of government effort. And I will share the link to our website after I speak so that you can get more information and you don't have to write down all these agencies. The initiative centers on building an enabling environment for private sector investment in infrastructure that we see as transparent, competitive, and in line with international best practices. Some of our activities under the initiative include diplomatic engagement, which Seth talked about earlier, hosting business-to-business or even business-to-government roundtables, supporting trade missions and study tours, undertaking commercial feasibility studies, sharing best practices to improve our investment climate, including looking at fiscal and regulatory frameworks, as well as supporting project finance. So much of the initial focus of the initiative at the beginning was, involved signing MOUs to expand energy and infrastructure cooperations, but countries don't need an MOU to work with us under the initiative's broader umbrella. We recognize that each country is unique and its needs are different, and different US agencies serve these distinct roles. But in terms of discussing opportunities for infrastructure investment as well as barriers, I'd really like to highlight that your governments and companies might want to look at what our Exim Bank and USTDA have to offer as part, they're a big part of this initiative. So I'll just focus on those two agencies that form a significant part. So as many of you might already be aware, the Export-Import Bank is our official export credit agency of the US. It facilitates export of US goods and services. Exim tends to fill the gap for US businesses when private sector lenders are either unable or unwilling to provide financing, and really it equips companies with the financing tools necessary to be able to compete for global sales. So their site is also included on the America Crece, or Growth in the Americas website that I will provide later on. And then our US Trade and Development Agency links US businesses to export opportunities. And they do this in part through reverse trade missions. Just to give you an example, in 2019, the agency hosted a microgrid infrastructure reverse trade mission with countries in the Caribbean to the United States, where they introduced them to US microgrid technologies, equipment, and services that can support the development and implementation of resilient electricity infrastructure in the Caribbean. So this was really a great opportunity for US companies to meet with and showcase their solutions, as well as learn about upcoming microgrid related project opportunities in the Caribbean. So really making that connection was essential. So just wanted to give those examples as two examples of what the initiative promotes. But again, please feel free to look at our website. If you need to contact us, there is an email that you can, that our office manages. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to connect you with the appropriate agencies. And looking forward to the Q&A, and really thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Maria. Right now, we'll continue with the US Caribbean 2020 and Growth in the Americas initiative with the Select USA. Mr. Ryan Wallace is a senior international investment specialist with Select USA, where he oversees foreign direct investments from Europe, Eurasia, and the Western Hemisphere. Prior to joining the Department of Commerce in 2017, he spent 5 years working for the British government in economic development and consular roles in Los Angeles and Washington. Ryan holds a Bachelor of Journalism in Radio Television News and a Bachelor of Arts and Political Science from the University of Missouri and a Juris Doctor from Western State College of Law. Mr. Ryan Wallace will be calling in, so I'll pass the floor on to Mr. Ryan Wallace.
Thank you, Stephen, and good morning, everyone. Hope you're able to hear me. And unfortunately, since I'm joining via phone, can't see the presentation, but we'll try to advance the slides and check in with everyone. But thank you again for the opportunity for Select USA to join the webinar today. We're happy to be a part of it. And so with that, we'll just go ahead and jump into the presentation. So moving on to slide 2. So just want to give everyone a bit more information about Select USA. Select USA is the U.S. government's foreign direct investment promotion program. We're part of the U.S. Department of Commerce and the U.S. Commercial Service, and our mission is to promote and facilitate job-creating business in the United States. As a federal agency, we're geographically neutral, so we don't steer companies to a particular city or state or region of the United States. Instead, what we look to do is to provide actionable information to companies to help with their decision-making process. At Select USA, we have 2 client bases that we work with. So we work with international companies that are looking to invest in the United States, and I believe we have plenty of those on the webinar today. And then we also work with U.S. economic development organizations at the state, regional, and local level to help them in their foreign direct investment or FDI attraction strategy. I should also point out that Select USA's remit is to focus on greenfield foreign direct investment in the United States, so we do not engage in real estate investment or in mergers and acquisitions. So moving ahead to slide 3, just gives a bit more information about our client bases. Again, so we, as I mentioned, we work with both existing investors in the United States, as well as those companies from around the world that aren't yet in the United States but are looking to enter the U.S. market. And then we also work with U.S. economic development organizations as well. So moving ahead to slide 4, how can Select USA help you and your company? So we have a suite of services that we offer to companies. The first and most useful area that we offer services is in terms of market research and counseling. So as I mentioned, we have actionable information that we can provide to companies looking to come to the U.S. We also offer different events and services throughout the year, so a platform for connections where you can connect with expertise on the ground, and you can engage with officials at the federal government level or at the state and local level within the United States. We also offer an ombudsman service to help companies navigate the federal regulatory landscape. So if they need help engaging or identifying a contact with another federal agency, that's something that we're also able to help with. And then finally, we can offer investment project advocacy for U.S. jurisdictions that are looking to land an internationally mobile foreign direct investment project. So just to give a bit more information on the actionable information that I mentioned, so we offer free market research and counseling to international companies looking to come to the U.S. As I mentioned, we're geographically neutral, but we can provide a lot of information to help companies develop a shortlist for cities or states that they're interested in moving their business to or expanding their operations to. So this can include information on industry clusters, supply chains, workforce and wages, federal and state incentives that may be available, operating costs, infrastructure and logistics, regulations, and so much more. So essentially what we can do is work with you directly, learn about your company's needs and requirements, and then we can help to get you that information. So moving on to the next slide, we should be on slide 6. So one of the ways we're able to provide this information and resources for companies is in a customized U.S. locations and resources report. So as I mentioned, a lot of that information, whether it's on industry clusters or wages, we can provide that information. We get companies that ask us about the cost of electricity, or we can give salary and wage information. We had a company, I like to give this example, about 1.5 years ago that wanted to know the pH level of soil for every county in a particular state, and the federal government actually has that information on hand, so we were able to provide that to the company, and for the company that was the ultimate deciding factor into where they were looking to invest. Moving on to slide 7, I mentioned the cluster mapping that we offer, so this can give you a great visual representation as to where clusters are for your particular sector or subsector in the United States. And so this is a project between the US Economic Development Administration, which is also part of the US Department of Commerce, and the Harvard Business School. And so this is a great tool to sort of visually see where the natural clusters are in the US. It's something that we can provide you with, or the link is available at clustermapping.us. Moving on to slide 8, and talking a bit more about the platform for connections and events and services that we offer. So at Select USA, we can provide direct introductions and networking opportunities to the states to assist with site selection, permitting, workforce training, partnership incentives, and other delivery of services that may be valuable to your company. So in addition to these introductions to the economic development organizations, our flagship event is the Select USA Investment Summit, where we bring together more than 1,200 companies that are looking to invest in the US, as well as representatives from the different 56 US states and territories. And so it's a great place over the course of 3 days to meet with several states and learn more about their specific region and what they have to offer your company. Another event that we offer are single location promotions and roadshows. So if there are particular states that are looking to go abroad and attract business from a certain market to their state, we can assist with that. And then we also offer roadshows as well, where we bring a group of economic development organizations to the Caribbean, for example, and you can learn more about setting up and establishing your business in the US. Moving on to slide 9 and navigating the federal system. As I mentioned, we have an ombudsman service where we can provide one-stop assistance to connect international companies looking to invest in the US or those that are already here to connect with other federal agencies to address questions and concerns that they may have. This is part of our Interagency Investment Working Group, or the IIWG, and we have more than 20 federal agencies that are part of this, including our colleagues at State Department who are on the webinar today, as well as colleagues from the Department of Energy, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, the Environmental Protection Agency, and others, just to give a few examples. Moving on to slide 10, we are also able to help companies engage with service providers as well. So we have every year at our Select USA Investment Summit, we have several service providers that can offer assistance in the areas of taxes and accounting or legal services, visas, HR, site selection. So we can give you information about that. And then we also have a service provider directory available on our website, selectusa.gov. So if you're looking for specific service providers, you can find them there as well. Moving on to slide 11 and the Select USA Investor Guide. This is something that we launched about 4 weeks ago or so, and we're pretty excited about. It's been a long time coming. But our Select USA Investor Guide is a comprehensive guide answering a lot of the main questions that we get inquiries about. So it covers everything from taxes and immigration to the different business structures that are available and how to structure your business. And so each chapter is written by a different expert in that area, and really sort of gives a great overview. And then we're happy to still follow on and answer questions that you may have about setting up your company in the United States. Moving on to slide 12 and resources and tools. Some additional resources and tools that we have. So we have a Select USA stats portion on our website where you can do a dynamic data visualization to see different FDI related data that's available from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. So that's available. We also have fact sheets available from numerous markets around the world. I will say that we don't have one for the Dutch Caribbean, but we do have one for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is the 7th largest source market of foreign direct investment in the United States. And then I mentioned the cluster mapping tool as well. Moving on to the next slide, slide 13. Just wanted to speak a bit more about the Select USA Investment Summit that I mentioned briefly earlier. So the Select USA Investment Summit is been running for several years now and has directly impacted more than $32.5 billion in new US investment projects. Unfortunately, this year's Select USA Investment Summit was postponed due to the pandemic, but we have rescheduled it for June 6th to 9th, 2021, and it will take place at the Washington Hilton in Washington, DC. Registration will be opening soon, but if it's something that you're interested in, I'm happy to connect and talk a bit more about. So going back to our most recent Select USA Summit in 2019, then, as I mentioned, we had over 3,000 attendees, including more than 1,200 delegates from international firms around the world, 800 representatives of economic development organizations from 49 US states and territories. And then there were about 500 representatives from academia, elected officials, and other members of US government. So the Select USA Investment Summit is hosted by the Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, and then we've been joined by other secretaries of other agencies in the past. So we've had the Secretary of State join, we've had the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development join, the Secretary of Treasury. So we're excited to sort of bring all of these great leaders together. And one of the things that we hear from both companies attending and from the U.S. Economic Development Organizations that they really take away from it is the matchmaking, where in 2019 we had more than 3,000 one-to-one matchmaking meetings take place. So moving on to the next and final slide, just to give you some quick contact information, and this will all be available. I believe we'll be emailing the presentations afterwards. But you can find my contact information. I'm based in Washington, D.C., as well as my colleagues, Christian Olsen from the consulate in the U.S. Consulate in Curaçao, as well as the U.S. Commercial Service in the region in Santo Domingo. And with that, I will just say thank you again for the opportunity, and looking forward to the Q&A period as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, right now we will continue with our next speaker, our last speaker for today, with regards to Curaçao US business experience. Roy started as an e-commerce manager at Curaçao in 2016, responsible for the online sales in mainly USA and Europe. After 1 year, there came an opportunity to take the job as commercial manager for Curaçao and become responsible for all sales in the Americas and Europe. With increasing demand for Curaçao products and multi-level strategy of direct-to-consumer sales, and to get Curaçao present in retail, Curaçao has opened new sales offices in India, South Africa, the Netherlands, and recently in the USA to increase their global presence in promising or strategic markets. Ladies and gentlemen, with you, Mr. Roy Knippenborg of Curaçao.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, Curaçao is a skincare and dietary supplements manufacturer in Curaçao. And actually, we started exporting in around 2014 as a totally bankrupt company. So we got some tourists visiting our plantation in Curaçao, and they say like, hey, we really like these products. We want to bring them to the, we want to get them in the US and also in the Netherlands. Yeah, so we get some demand, emails from people saying, hey, we want these products. So that's the moment actually we start thinking about, okay, we have a good product, we need to export it. We started a web shop for that, where orders came in and we put them in a box and we shipped them from Curaçao with the postal services or a DHL or UPS to the United States and to the Netherlands. Well, without really a success, it was actually quite horrible about packages getting lost. Packages take around 7 weeks to get to the clients whatsoever. So that's the moment where we actually started to increase our supply or improve our supply chain with a warehouse in Miami, which we still work with. It's like actually a fulfillment center. So what we currently do is we ship our products with Amerijet to the US, which is actually quite interesting because on the island of Curaçao, there is a lot of import, but really less export. So the plane that comes from America, from Amerijet, they're totally stocked with, I don't know, fresh products, with food, with, I don't know what's in the plane. But I know that this thing goes back empty. So what I did was I told Amerijet, like, hey, because it cost them money. So I said, like, hey, if you want me to put some stock in there, I can do that, but I need a good price. Well, this Amerijet, they bring the products to to Miami. The warehouse there, they clears it, they receive it. And once now an online order comes in from our web shop, they put it in a box and ship it all over the United States and Canada. Quite easy so far. We did have some challenges although, and that's mainly, and it's a challenge, especially if you start with online. So online business is really interesting because you sell, or what we do, we sell directly to consumers. So we have a very high margin. But the main challenge is about selling online, that when you want to have a web shop, you need a payment service provider. This is actually the link between your clients, actually your client's bank account, and your web shop. To get a connection with a payment service provider, you need a bank account, of course. And there is no single payment service provider in the world that is doing business with the Curaçao banks. I don't know for the other islands, but the Curaçao banks, it was impossible for us. Also with PayPal, with everything else. So the other challenge we had to overcome was how can we get a bank account in an abroad country? And the only way to do that, I think, is to start a company in an abroad country. So what we did back in 2015, I think, is starting a company in the Netherlands. So we were able to open Dutch bank accounts. And with the Dutch bank accounts, we are able to receive payments from our clients before, of course, shipping out the products. Yeah, that was actually our biggest challenge to overcome. Well, I started with this company with, we are a skincare and dietary supplement manufacturer. That is true, but it's actually not the story we tell to our clients. So what you see really often with manufacturers or people that are selling products, they say like, hey, this is my product. Oh, sorry, I think you can't really see it, but this is my product. It costs $25 US, and do you want to buy it? Well, that is not going to work. So the first thing we did is creating really a storytelling web shop. So we are not just selling skincare products, but we are selling an aloe vera plantation in Curaçao, where we produce every single product from plant to bottle on one plantation, which gives us the really beneficial situation that we can put the pure liquid aloe vera as a main ingredient into our products. So every product contains at least 65% aloe vera. And I'm generalizing a little bit, but if you tell this to a US consumer, this story, they think it's amazing. And you really have to sell the story with the product. And especially since we are a manufacturer in Curaçao, so our products are not cheap. And that, yeah, you should imagine that to produce in Curaçao, there are almost no manufacturers, or really a few manufacturers. So what we do, we have to import every single raw material and every single bottle. For example, the bottles come from Guatemala, the boxes, they come from South Africa, the labels from Israel, the ingredients mainly from the USA, to bring them all to Curaçao and to make one end product with, of course, our own aloe vera, which make the products very expensive. So without selling a really beautiful story, especially, yeah, almost no customer is going to pay this amount of money. But if you tell the story and you have a very good product, yeah, then it works. Especially for US, because the US consumers, yeah, like I told you, they think it's amazing. So a US customer is quite easy to get to your product, but if they find somebody else or something else that sells even a better story, then they're also easy to leave you. In the Netherlands, which is also a really big market for us, it's a little bit different. There we have, there's the clients quite hard to get because, yeah, the Dutch people, they think everything is expensive. So, but once you get them to your product, then yeah, they won't leave that easy. Well, one of the things we did for our online sales that was really successful is since we get a lot of customers from, a lot of tourists that visit in Curaçao, they come to our plantation store or one of the stores in Curaçao. They get in contact with the product. Yeah, since we have quite a good product, they fall in love with the product and they want to reorder it. So what we do in Curaçao, we give every single client that buys something from us, we give them a voucher. And with this voucher, it has a discount code for 20% off on their first order. So when they go home and they start using the product, they like it, they want to reorder, we immediately have a call to action that they think like, oh, hey, wait, I still have a 20% off. So yeah, I go online and I will buy it online. Yeah, this gave us a lot of revenue. On the other hand, we also, as a company, like everyone else, are hit quite hard to the effects of COVID-19, and especially since the tourism in Curaçao is almost zero. Now it's slowly starting to get back on track again. So that gave us a decrease of total sales, like for around 60%, since there is no single tourist anymore in Curaçao that buys a product. But yeah, luckily we already have our export sales and our online sales in place. And due to people cannot visit Curaçao, but also what we found out is that our body gel, for example, it's our #1 best-selling product. A lot of Americans, they buy it to make their own hand sanitizer. So they have their own, I don't know, isotope alcohol or something, and they mix it with our body gel, make their own sanitizer. So what we immediately saw, the total revenue in Curaçao was collapsed, but online we had an increase for around 40% just by people buying the product, I don't know, or to make sanitizer or whatsoever. Also, you saw this on our Amazon sales. We have a distributor for that, but he sells all the products on Amazon, and he immediately started placing big orders for body gel to sell it to people that want to make sanitizers. Also, since we are a manufacturer and we already had alcohol in-house, we start making our own sanitizers, which is really like the adapt or die strategy that totally saved this company from a bankrupt situation till where we are now. And I won't say that we are already really successful. We have a long way to go. But also the own sanitizer sales, it was a bit of a damage control for all the decrease of the sales we had online. In Curaçao. So yeah, it's adapt or die, switching to something else that can make money. Well, till we are at the point that our revenue is growing so fast that the US IRS is knocking on the door that says like, hey, now you're making such a nice omzet, have such a nice revenue. We also want a piece of that. So in order to pay taxes and to especially to enter the US market on a larger scale, we started opening a company in Miami, in Brickell. And actually, I have to schedule a meeting with Luc because I can literally throw a stone to his window now because we're really close by them. We opened the company there just to have some US presence also for the company, to do everything legal, to be able to pay the IRS for all our sales taxes and everything, and especially to do some market research, as there are a lot of big chains in the US that doesn't all fit with your products. So before we went to there, I started thinking like, I want the product in Walmart because Walmart is big. They have stores everywhere. Once I visited a Walmart in Miami, I directly found out that the cheapest aloe vera product, which is probably aqua water with some aloe vera powder, is sold there against $5. So yeah, not really a good partner for us, as we are still too expensive for that. And the only way to find out is pay a visit to the US, visit as much stores as you can to that you want to target. So it turns out that we are the stores or the chains we would like to be into is, for example, the Vitamin Shop, Whole Foods, Kohl's. So those are all stores that have the same kind of range of products, same pricing level. Started with the Vitamin Shop, having a meeting with them, giving them a presentation, sent them some samples. Whereafter they said like, hey Roy, nice product, I like it, call me back in July. Then we start purchasing for February 2021. So yeah, to go to the big change, it's a very long run. So yeah, go back to the adapt or die. Okay, we need to create revenues. So where we are now is what we now want to do. I drove around a little bit in my car into Miami, and I saw there are a shitload of small retailers with, like, say, from 2 to 1 or 1 to 10 stores, which can really help Curaçao to create brand awareness in the US, and which have really a personal connection with probably the people shopping there. So our focus now, we moved, of course, we're still going to chase the big chains, but yeah, since it will take some time and we need revenue, we start now with hiring people in the US to do some cold calling to almost every small retailer in hopefully everyone in the US. Yeah, to heat up the leads and try to get Curaçao in their assortment. Yeah, that's actually where we are now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roy. That was an amazing story of Curaçao and how it's got into the US and it's exporting, but also the online, offline Curaçao/international experiences during the COVID period. That is really an amazing story. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to send us questions through the Q&A button so we can handle those questions. We have one question already, partially has been answered by the experience of Curaçao, but maybe Mr. Ryan Wallace could also give his thoughts on this one. This question is from Manuel Maduro, asking, one local bottleneck is a lack of modern payment options for small business transactions, like PayPal. Locally, we can make but not receive payments through PayPal. What would it take to solve this?
Thank you so much for the question. It is something that we've heard in the past, and if you could follow up with me directly, I'm happy to talk more specifically one-on-one about your particular situation. But there are some options that are available, not any that we can sort of publicly endorse, but they are available for use. So there are various service providers out there that are available, or you may be able to find through our Select USA service provider directory.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll be contacting you, Ryan, because this is a question that we get in different other webinars and seminars as well. I've tried myself to be in link with different PayPal professionals, but then set up a meeting and everything, but it doesn't go through. So I think this would be an amazing start to get to see if we can at least get further with this topic, to see if we can get that part as well solved for Curaçao. Let me see here. There was a question about figures about trade relationship, export-import at present between USA and Curaçao to share. For that, a link it can also be shared in the chat box with regards to the Bureau of Statistics in Curaçao, which could get some trade information about between Curaçao and the US. Let me see if we got more questions. Okay, no, let me just check here. Okay, another question was from Twinkle Matthew. I run a small technology company with core focus on software solution development with domain specialization in banking, insurance, and telecom. I have a few clients in the US. However, I would like to expand my client base in the USA, perhaps by finding a strategic partner. Just want to know whom I should be contacting for this. And our panelists who can chip in on that one.
Hi, Stephen. This is Ryan Wallace from Select USA again. There may be partners out there if you're looking to do a strategic partnership or a joint venture. As I mentioned in my presentation, our focus at Select USA is on foreign direct investment, so helping companies set up a subsidiary in the US. So unfortunately, identifying potential business partners is outside of our legal remit. However, there may be consulting firms or some banks or other service providers that can offer services like that. And we, as I mentioned, have a service provider directory on our Select USA website that may be of use, but defer to other panelists as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Ryan. We have another question from Mr. Quentin Schutteman. We are a local production company with a very innovative product. We would like to open and start doing business in the US. What do you recommend as a first step?
This is Ryan again. As a first step, we would certainly recommend that companies develop a business plan for the US and have a sense of what they're looking to do and where they're looking to go. If they've already been exporting to the US, usually companies have found if they've already developed a client base in the US to begin with, that makes it easier to then set up physical operations in the US and help grow that. But please work with the US Consulate in Willemstad, or please contact me directly, and we're happy to work with you individually, one-on-one, to discuss your company's goals and needs and how we can offer assistance.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Add to that from my perspective, Stephen, I would recommend to first do some sector studies from Curaçao. Get in touch with the consulate there. Also, feel free to reach out to us here in Miami. And then get to know the market a little bit better that way, and then maybe come over for a trade show, for another event, and get to know partners here a little bit, and then take it from there. And as we heard from the previous question as well, often you see that first the company starts exporting to the United States. Then the next step would be to have a strategic partner or joint venture, and only then as the next step to really set up an entity here, either as an American entity or registered as or doing business from Curaçao. But there's different steps to that process.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question, but it kind of is linked with the same thing of the first step. So right now, the contact information of the embassy, but also of Ryan, will be sent after this webinar. Because the next question would have been, as a beverage company, what is the best way to start there in the USA? Because we have a lot of customer interest in the US. Well, besides the contacts, we can also tell you that tomorrow, as Chamber, we will be having a webinar, which will be focused on explanations from the RVO. So the RVO also gives different vouchers for the part of how to use these vouchers for either knowledge or research within the different international markets. So if you could join there, then that could also be a first step to know more, so you know which steps you could take in those different markets.
Yeah, if I can say as an addition to that, since we export dietary supplements, which are also beverages. So what you need to do also is, what you need to start with is getting your food facility registration with the FDA to be able to import, at least in the US. What you can do is, contact me directly. We have some agents who do that for us. There's Register Corp, and they're quite affordable. To get your food facility registration, and I even have a fulfillment center which I can bring you in contact with. The only thing we have to overcome, and hopefully Mr. Ryan Wilkins can help with that for you guys, is to get your bank account in an abroad country, or be able to receive online payments. And then I think with a beverage company you can also easily start there. One thing which is really important. Don't start exporting with a cheap or really price-sensitive product.
Thank you very much, Roy. We have another question. As a casual fast food restaurant, we would like to start in Miami, but we do not know where to start. So that would be, again, those contacts in order to see what your first start would be, besides the part of market research, of course. Okay. We have another question. What does the Business Support Office of the Dutch Kingdom based in Los Angeles do?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question, Stephen. We have two NBSOs, or Netherlands Business Support Offices, one in LA and one in Houston, and they work closely together with the consulates. I think the main focus of the business support offices would be the SMEs, so the small and medium enterprises. It's really about answering questions from SMEs and helping them access the market either in LA or in Texas. Whereas the consulate, in addition to that, also maintains contacts at the government level. Maybe does a bit more of market analysis, but the business support offices are offices of RVO, so they have this focus really on SMEs and helping them enter the market.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Luc. Our next question. As an IATA travel agent, I am looking to work together with travel consolidators. Most of them require a formal presence from our company in the US. Is there any way to work around this? Maybe not work around it, but is there any way to deal with this one? So he's working with travel consolidators, and they require a formal presence. Is there a way that maybe through the embassy, there's some kind of representation office or companies that offer these services in the US in order to cater to this request?
Hi, yes, I've been asked to take this one, but unfortunately I don't have the exact answer, but we can certainly take it back and see. I mean, I think we would have to talk to our commerce colleagues and our embassy folks, but I'd be happy to take it back.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. So that one is pending, Mr. Lippinkov. Another one, the energy sector in the US was mentioned as a key investment sector. Is it possible to elaborate on this topic and provide an insight on the potential market in the US and how Curaçao can contribute in this market with less focus on the fossil industry? Maybe Maria or Mr. Wycus?
Yeah, I'd be happy to start. So if the question is how Curaçao can contribute to investing in the U.S. market, I mean, I think there are a number of, energy-related services. If there is a company in Curaçao that could provide those services to, if it's not in the fossil fuel industry, I mean, renewable energy technologies, that's huge in the U.S. market as well. In the solar side, wind, hydro. So that I think is somewhere that we can look into. I'd be happy to connect you with our DOE, Department of Energy colleagues to look at those possibilities as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Maria. Let's see if we have any more questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we're nearing the end of the webinar. If you have any other questions, please, you have at least 2 minutes more to ask us the question. And if not, you will be able to have all our contact information through the email that you will be receiving. So we will be right now closing the call, thanking all of our panelists, thanking all of our participants as well, our attendees. Thank you for hanging in there. We've seen that the most people were actually through the whole webinar with us. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, again, in the email, you will be receiving all our contact information to be able to resolve all your questions you have. Thank you very, very much, and wishing you a great day. Thank you.